record.
Okay, we will start like today. The most common usage code. Like if you want to read any type of file, any type of databases, or any type of SQL queries, also, we will implement one common function, and we need to utilize how we need to utilize it. This is main task of this session basically. If we see this particular function, what I am doing, just I am creating one of the reader activity I'm performing. You can pass either database details, either file information, either Spark SQL query. Anything fine. If you are passing that information, we will read the data and we will create the data frame and we will return it. Any type of, like if you want to read CSV, if you want to read Parquet, if you want to read ORC, or if you want to read RC, or if you want to read Redshift, if you want to read databases, any database, Oracle, MySQL, Cosmos DB, any databases, you can use this function and you can implement this type of queries. This is the main, very useful function basically. Even project level also, we need to customize the code. You need to reduce the code. That is the very important. If you see if in case in your projects you are writing a CSV file one code, a Parquet file one code, this really is not good. Instead of that, we can go with this option. We have an option function. You need to use this option function. It's not option, it's a options. Okay. Now what we are doing? This is basically, if you see this scenario, few arguments you need to pass it. One is the type of file read, like is it files, or is it DB, or is it Spark SQL? You need to provide your information. That file pattern type you need to provide it. File, like what type of files we need to read it, or what type of database we need to read it. You need to pass the type. This is input part. If in case type is file, you need to pass this input file. If it is DB, it should be a none. We will see that example also. Read option. This is the basically very important. This is one of the dictionary object. You need to pass this particular dictionary here. If you are passing this dictionary here, we will read entire the data. We can read any type of data also. The previously also in the code level, we implemented one function called as a read file function. If you see this read file function, we are passing our value as a read options we are passing basically. See here. Here also, just I'm passing that particular read options here. Nothing else. We are passing the read options and we are creating the data frames. Now, if you see this particular function, we can read even files, we can read even DB, we can read even Spark SQL. The three we can do it at a time with the same function. What type of information you need to pass, we can go with that one by one options. Okay. If in case, if we are using file, if you want to read the file activity, if you want to read the files, any type of file, or CSV, or Parquet, or JSON, okay, JSON, or anything, any file format, whatever your format, you need to just mention the format information. See, what I am doing, this scenario, just I'm reading the data here. You can think about, this is my input path as a S3 or DBFS, or like HDFS, or ADLS location, anything, any location. You can pass this input as a string argument, your path, you need to pass it. Simply remember, this is your input path, file path. Wherever your file is there, na, that file path we need to pass here. Okay. If we are passing this particular path, we can able to read, we enter the data. But you can think about, in my scenario, I am thinking this is my CSV file. This particular CSV file, what I am doing, this is the file pattern. Okay. We are doing the file pattern, we are reading the files basically. Now you are reading the files and you are providing the input file path you are providing, and file read options we are providing here. Okay. If you are thinking CSV file, if it is your header is there, you can mention that header as a tool. If you don't have header, you can remove this option. This is totally optional fields. Whatever these things, these are all the option fields. Infra schema. If you want to use infra schema, you can keep it as a 2. If you don't want to this infra schema, you can remove this one. This is very simple, basically. Simple coding standards. Okay. This is if you are using JSON, if it is multi-line is there, you can add multi-line. You can add it and you can pass, instead of file pattern, you need to pass it. If you see this particular function also, we need to pass the file format we need to pass. Like what type of files we need to read it, that format we need to pass here. It's a static, like if you are reading CSV file, you need to pass here the CSV. If you are using JSON, reading JSON, you need to pass here JSON files. You need to pass it like that. This is only one function. We can perform it entire the we can able to read the data. That activity we will do it here. This is the very similar thing basically. This is the file information. But if you are not using query, you can keep it as a none. Or if you want to providing that particular query also, that is fine. That's not a big challenge. Okay. Now, if you want to read the databases, then we need to pass the required argument. Whatever the requirement argument, like JDBC level, we need to pass the URL, DB table or DB table or DB SQL query. Both, anything fine. DB, if you are providing the table, it will be read enter the data. If you are providing the query, it will be perform that particular query only. This much simple code we need to do it, this activity here. Okay. Username, whatever the database user, you need to provide it here. Whatever your password, you need to provide it here. Driver, basically here what you need to do it. If it is Redshift driver name, you need to provide it. If it is Oracle, you need to provide the Oracle database driver. You need to provide this information. Then you need to enable this particular code. Now, same function only. Instead of file, we are reading the DB. You need to provide the DB information. If you are providing the DB information, DB, automatically we will read the DB here. What it will be happen internally? First, I will check this particular lower type as a file, type as a DB, type as a Spark SQL. Anything fine. If you want to keep it here, database also, you can keep it. That's not a big problem here. Okay, you need to provide this one. And now file path, like while reading the databases, file path is not required. You can keep it as a none. And if it is DB, like DB options, whatever the options we created, this is the dictionary. You need to pass this particular dictionary. And none. This is basically, if you see here, this is the query operation. Spark SQL on the time I'm using that particular query. Then you no need to pass that particular argument here. You no need to pass that argument. You can keep it as a null. And while using database read activity, you can keep it as a JDBC. It will be read the data and it will be perform the activities. Okay. Next thing. If you see this scenario here, this is basically Spark SQL. If you want to use same code in Spark SQL, you can simply pass Spark SQL and file path is none. Read options also not required, none. You can pass your SQL query and this is Spark type. What type of things we need to pass it? We need to pass that particular type. It will be perform that particular, this should be a none, sorry. This should be a none. You can keep it as a none. Automatically, it will be read that particular SQL query, it will be displayed the data. If you see this scenario, just what I'm doing, I'm running this code. Currently, I don't have a CSV, like any file format. You can check in your code, it will be work 100%. We already tested this code. I will show you in my local also. See, if you see this scenario, this is running now. It will be populated the data. This way, you can read any type of file, any type of SQL query, any type of database.